Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Please put your hands together and welcome to the stage Andrew Kötting and what's that old bloke called? Iain Sinclair.
I'd like to introduce my panel. I know you met them briefly before. We have the director, Andrew Kötting. We have the producer, Lisa Marie Russo. And we have writer and collaborator, Iain Sinclair. And I'm sure, well, hopefully you are familiar with Iain Sinclair from his writings and as a psychogeographer, hopefully that's correct. And you may have seen Andrew's films before. We've shown them regularly, and he's been here for a Q&A in the past. And producer Lisa Marie Russo, I've worked with on films such as Self-Made, the Gillian Waring film that hopefully you saw here a couple of years ago. So first off, let's get straight into it. Andrew, how did this start? Where did this come from?
Its genesis goes back to 1874 when I first met Iain. And he was kayaking down the River Thames, and he accosted me and suggested that perhaps I should swim the London Borough of Hackney. I think I mentioned that at the beginning, but it seemed such a ridiculous notion, and it was something that I was very kind of curious about doing. And we'd already met, and Iain, in fact, had accompanied me when I made a film called Offshore, and it was a cross-channel swim film that I kind of documented. And he was kind of one of the few people on board that vessel, which was actually called the Gallivant, that managed to not chuck up and kind of remain reasonably compos mentis. And it was around about that time I also moved down to Hastings from London, and this is where our kind of relationship developed. And I think when Iain kind of approached me, I suggested that I swim. It was something that he knew that I was kind of slightly obsessed with. But I kind of felt that the journey could be extended. So the idea of pedalling this swan-shaped pedaler from Hastings to Hackney, that just seemed to be absolutely right. And once we arrived in Hackney, then whatever happened, happened. So I was kind of curious in trying, it was more about the endurance and more about the kind of physicality of making this trip from Hastings to Hackney. That's what really kind of rocked my boat.
But you had to leave a little early, didn't you?
It was tragic.
How did that, was that a bad
Well, it affected
breakup?
me, and you see that in the film. There was kind of, apart from the fact that I'd been carrying Iain non-stop for 3 weeks anyhow, to see the back of him, I kind of. But then in that moment, I realised that he actually had been pedalling.
Because you went round in circles.
Yeah, and I was lopsided, and I spent most of the time like this, and you kind of realise that the old fella he's got a pair of legs on him, but that was just a lot of that was to do with timing. I came back from the Pyrenees last year. I'd been promoting another film, and that extra week Iain was off. He was all right.
I had a fixed date. I had to
leave.
Be there to do a talk. The accident of me having to leave, I think, is the most sort of emotional aspect of the whole film. It gives it real drama for the third act, and it also was something that was really important not only to what happened to me in America, but in the book I'm writing now. This sort of transition of one thing into another, which is, I think, the way both of us work, is that nothing is a fixed project, everything is permeable.
Well, I also think, just going back to the point about Iain having to leave, I think there was an expectation or maybe a feeling amongst all of us that there would be some kind of big confrontation when we got to the Olympic site, or we'd be there kicking off, and and it actually became about something else. And your reflections on what that meant to you coming up to that point was a nice surprise, within the film.
I really enjoy the film once I've gone. But I really think also I would like to say how important it is to be showing it in Manchester, because which was not any part of my consideration. I had no idea that the first screening would be in Manchester. But Manchester is really the epicenter of this whole thing that's become known as psychogeography, because Thomas de Quincey, who's the great English godfather of all that, starts the whole business when he walks out from Manchester Grammar School, where he's a reluctant pupil, and goes off for a phenomenal derive through North Wales, this sort of wandering walk that defines the idea of the walk where you don't know what you're doing, the fugue, the thing that resolves your life, that's been the inspiration to everything I've done. And that comes out of Manchester. And then he accesses the labyrinth of London and sees London as a labyrinth that has to be escaped by reenacting an idea of the Northwest Passage. And not only that, but Manchester was the place where Dr. John Dee, the great Elizabethan alchemist and imperial geographer, came to be the head of Manchester Grammar School when he's expelled. So here is this place right at the centre of England where the Swan Voyage, which is a sort of late recapitulation of these themes, is brought back, which is a perfect circular shape and a coincidence and an accident that couldn't be more appropriate.
Does the book explain why you wanted to wet your handmade suit for a month?
Why I wanted to wet my handmade suit?
For a month?
Yes. Well, the thing is that if you're travelling in the same suit every day and you're in and out of the water, it kind of didn't matter. You know, one of the great ironies is towards the end, and the producer didn't talk about it, but it used to hum. The suit was pretty... It was designed specifically. It's a suit that I walk in and sleep in a lot. It's got Swandown in the inside. It's not here today with me. I was going to wear it. It's in an exhibition, an installation that we've got open in London.
You're shrunken.
Opens Tuesday night.
And I hadn't wet myself. It looked like I pissed myself. And I put them in a dryer one evening because I knew we were going to have an early morning start, and they were soaking wet. And the dryer was up too hot. And this is after Iain had gone. So in the end, you know, they've turned into a pair of kind of furry lederhosen. And then my arse actually burst out when I was pedalling on the second to last day. So I've got to meet Marina Warner in this very same suit in a couple of weeks' time and introduce her at the installation. So I'm not looking forward to that. But yeah, wetting yourself in a Swandown suit is very easy.